Okay, so as many of you already know, my big dream came true yesterday. I got to talk to Marc Randazza after like 10 years. We used to be like really close. He used to appreciate people like me and love me. But then his letterhead said, I specialize in domain names. And then he got really big mad at me because I had a domain name named marcrandazza.com. So he sued me for 12 years and we got in a big fight. And he just sued me and sued me and sued me. And his then wife, Jennifer, sued me. And his toddler, I think named Natty or Natalie or something, sued me. It's like, whoa, what a novelty to be sued by a baby. Anyway, I was sued by a baby. So 12 years pass, and Marc sues me. Takes all my domain names, redirects all my intellectual property to his famous Randazza.com with a page that's defaming me and lying about me and linking to big media where he'd interview and lied about me. Keeping in mind, he was my attorney. He turned on me, right? He worked with the opposition in Obsidian versus Cox. My own attorney. He filed amicus briefs in the very case he represented me in against me, right? I sue him for defamation and malpractice, and the judge says, okay, we can move those claims forward. They're valid. And then he goes, oh my God, he goes bankrupt. He got a $500,000 arbitration award for Liberty Media, and there's these clients that want justice, so he's got to go bankrupt. Okay, so he gets the in-laws in, he gets a mortgage, he buys a rodeo. I have a photographic memory, this is just on my head. He buys this rodeo or something, some car for Jennifer. He either fakes a divorce or does a real divorce. He gets in-laws to get the mortgage, he gets all these things. And I didn't know he's filing bankruptcy. I didn't know what's going on. So then the courts, I just knew that my claims were moving forward. So then the bankruptcy court sends me a letter and says, well, this is a proof of claim. If you want to have your claims, protect your claims, you have to file a proof of claim. Okay. Marc Randazza filed for bankruptcy, listed me as the number one creditor for $10 million. I didn't know anything about any of that. So I Googled it. I looked up how to do a proof of claim. I did a proof of claim, and it said if you have any objections to discharging the debt, then to put that in this other format. So I did. Next thing I knew, Randazza got his pennies hit by the wall. He was big mad. So he sued me within the bankruptcy court because I filed a proof of claim and the discharge of debt thing. I was like, oh my gosh, where did that come from? Because I didn't even know that. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And I was in Ireland at the time, so I didn't even know that he sued me. He didn't serve me because he doesn't have to serve me. See, that's how it works. And so when I got back, then I started seeing this stuff on it. I got the paperwork, and then I filed a response. So I filed 2-3 responses. Marc said, no, she did not. So Marc Randazza gets a default judgment against me for $450,000. And just before that, he said, I'll tell you what. You know I'm a First Amendment attorney, right? I love the First Amendment. So I'll tell you what, if you remove your content about me, speaking critical of me and my law firm and telling about your experience with me, then I won't go after this default judgment. And I said, screw you, buddy. I love the First Amendment. Screw you, buddy. In hindsight, probably not a good idea. But I'm like, no, I love the First Amendment. The First Amendment is valid. What I posted is my true experience. I get to make fun of Marc Randazza, even if he defends everyone else's. You have the right you have the right. Yet Nazis, pedophiles, you have the right to criticize whoever you want. But Crystal Cox, no. So, right. So I'm like, no, because I love the First Amendment, and I don't want you to take away my right. So he got a $450,000 default judgment against me. Bing. And then my malpractice claims, he first asked the judge if they could be moved to the bankruptcy court, and he was denied. Then like a year later, he asked again, and he got the malpractice and defamation claims that I had against him, valid claims, moved to the bankruptcy court. I didn't know that. I didn't know how. I didn't know how to represent myself. I lost track of all these lawsuits against me, and it just went away. My claims just kind of got lost. A valid defamation claim. If you're an attorney that can sue Marc Randazza, my email is reverendcrystalcox@gmail.com. And Reverend has 3 E's. Sometimes people put an A in it. Anywho, so that's kind of what happened. So then in 2020, Marc, I hadn't heard from him in years. He surfaced. He's like, dusted off his woo, I got to deal with this lawsuit I've had out there with Crystal for 12 years. The court's like, yeah, your bankruptcy's like been in 7 years. You got to deal with the lawsuit now. He's like, okay, so what I'm going to do, I know what I'm doing. What am I going to do with these 40 domain names I took from her and Elliot illegally? Oh my gosh, I know, I'll take them as an asset to satisfy this big old default I got. Oh, that's a big idea. So, but half of them are Elliot's. We don't care about that. The law, me and the law, go way back. I'm Marc Randazza. I tell the judge how it is. The judge says, okay, you're Marc Randazza. Okay, so took the 40 domain names as an asset to satisfy the debt. But because he'd already ruined the value of the domain names, they were worth $1. So he's like, okay, $40. She still owes me like $450,000. Plus interest. Marc Randazza, I do what I want. Okay, so then he cleared it up and dismissed the case after 12 years. But then he had this other little nifty case, right? $450,000 default judgment. So nothing happens. 2 years pass. And then the nitwits in Port Townsend contact him and go, hey, we don't like Julie Jamon, and we don't like Julie Jamon's attorney, and we don't like Crystal Cox. So, they're trying to get these public records, and I think you should look at this because Crystal, you might be able to get something out of Crystal, and you might be able to harass her. So even though it's a public record, Mark's like, I got me a secret tip. So he sues Julie Jamon's attorney to go after me. And then he sued some local banks and God knows what with some false information that nitwits gave him. And then he had his attorney message me and said, hey, you want to settle? And I'm like, hey, I don't know. I got some rocks that I got a didgeridoo. I don't know. What do you do? I give you the rock, I give you the didgeridoo, and you clear the debt. I mean, I got nothing to offer. He's like, well, we know you just worked with the city on getting some records for that Jamon case, but he worded it a little bit differently. Okay. And so I was like, well, that's not an offer. Like, you want to talk about a settlement? Let's fucking use our big words here, okay? Pardon my language. You just had to throw in the F word. I didn't mean to. Anywho, but then Julie Jamon's attorney filed a huge civil rights lawsuit against the YMCA. And snap, Marc Randazza works with Center for American, I always say it wrong, Center for American Freedom or Center for American Liberty. Marc Randazza works for them, and he works with them, and has for years. Who knew? Right? So he stopped badgering Julie Jamon's attorney because, oop-de-doo, his source was on the opposite side of the lawsuit. And right, so he just went quiet. He thought, well, I'll just be quiet until this lawsuit's over, and then I'll go after Crystal some more. Okay, so here's what happened. Then he had a big win, right, over the RNC weekend. And Harmeet Dillon posted it, was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. It was a really cool win because it's like citizen journalists get rights and the government can't shut them down, right? But I did a little write-up about it because I'm like, but Mark shut me down. Mark shut down Monica Foster. Alexandra Mayers is her name. And other whistleblowers within the porn industry. He drove women to suicide. He bankrupted people. He threatened people. Yes, this is a good ruling, but Mark is the bad guy. He's really, really bad. So I just kind of put that out there. And that was the first time that I tagged Mark. I had started a site after he went after Julie Jamon's attorney and the stuff he did here. I decided, you know what? I'm not going to be scared of him anymore. So after 7 years, I decided to start posting my experience with him. So that's on Randazza Parody on X. And I also have it on YouTube. And I have a TikTok. Talking about my experience with Mark, making fun of him, bringing back the documents, bringing it back because he won't leave me alone. So that happened about 4 months ago. Okay. Then we had the RNC, and then I made that comment. It was the first time I tagged him on Twitter because Harmeet had said that about him. And I wasn't too harsh. I just said, oh my gosh, I love Harmeet. I love the Center for American, love you guys. But this is the deal with Mark. And nobody said anything. So then, July 24th, Harmeet did a post and she said, oh my gosh, there's so much love, right? There's so much love in the out there. And I'm so happy that everybody's coming together and all the people around Trump and stuff. And I did a little paragraph and said, well, I wish that Marc Randazza would come together. And I wish that Marc Randazza, this video is going to be longer than I thought. Anyway, I said, my big wish is that Marc Randazza we could just, hug and let it go. And we could just, what she was saying about everybody uniting. I asked that about Marc. And actually, I'll show you the post probably here.